Hello and welcome to the Unapologetic Moms Club podcast. I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, manifesting maven, lunar ritualist, nature lover, sex magic expert, and empowering sex, love, and relationship coach. If you'd like, you can think of me as your witchy bestie who calls you out on your self-deprecating cycles while encouraging you to align with your highest self. And I'm on a mission to help women return to the wisdom of their bodies and nature and to embrace their inner power. If you're a woo-woo mom craving more self-love, confidence, fulfillment, and passion in your life, you're in the right place. The Unapologetic Moms Club podcast is here to help moms like you to thrive as your most radiant and happy self. Here you can find inspiration and tools taken from my one-on-one coaching sessions and group experiences to support you in your journey. We'll cover things like societal conditioning, inner child healing, pleasure practices, manifestation techniques, approachable rituals, and all around women's empowerment. My goal is to shift your perspective and to give you actionable takeaways so you can walk away from these episodes feeling inspired to create a life that ignites your soul. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful we're able to connect in this way, and I can't wait to dig into the contents of this episode with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, dear ones. I hope you are just having a beautiful start to your week. I am just getting things prepared, all squared away for day 2 of the Revitalized Mom free 5-day challenge that we're in the middle of for really learning to nourish through pleasure. And day 1 was incredible. It felt so good. Moving through the shadow work, uncovering all these different beliefs that we've taken on around our sexuality, and then being able to shift that into this more high vibrational choosing what we want our beliefs to be, taking that like platter of all of these different beliefs that society has placed on us, different friends and family, different relationships have put out there, the media, so many different things, and being able to put it all out there to be able to assess, see where these things are coming from, these different thoughts that are coming up in our mind, and bring the intention to how we want these things to work for us. Is it time to let them go? What do we want to keep? What feels true for us? Perhaps we can bring some acknowledgement and acceptance to how these beliefs came about, where they come from, and ultimately choosing what we want our empowered sexual story to be. And then sealing that all up with a 5 senses reality, just really embodying that sexually empowered, revitalized self, and feeling into that, seeing what's around us, tasting it, smelling it, listening in, really opening up all the senses and creating this version of us here in the now. It was so juicy, and yeah, I am just loving it and excited for day 2, where we are really digging into our sexual energy as our life force energy. We're going to be doing some dancing, going to be working through some stored energy, some blocks that are so often stored in the hips, stored in our sacral energy center, learning about the throat yoni connection, and bringing in some yoni breathing to really build that relationship with ourselves, with that sacral energy center, with our sexual organs. And so I am so excited for it. And that said, we are in the middle of it. I'll get to the podcast episode in just a moment, I promise. But we are in the middle of the challenge, and you can join at any time. It is available on demand after this challenge is done running. So feel free to pop in. You are not late. You're in perfect timing. If you are feeling interested, I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. And so, without further ado, I'll begin to dig into this week's episode. And I am actually switching it up a little bit. A couple weeks ago, I believe I was on my dear friend and Vita Peer's podcast, Amber Kay, the Queen of Alchemy. She is just such a wonderful woman, human. She's amazing in so many different ways. And she welcomed me onto her podcast. Again, that's the Queen of Alchemy. And we had a really great conversation around the power of pleasure practices. And we are able to get right into it, really talk about how they've impacted us. And she asked some great questions, kind of putting me on the spot. And I'm an open book. I love to share about it, but asking me about my personal favorite pleasure practices and really digging into things and sharing and opening up. And it was such a great podcast episode that I thought I would share it here as well. So that's what's in store for you today. And I encourage you, if you are liking the conversation we're having, I guess I have a couple invitations for you. One is to check out Amber Kay. Again, she's an amazing human, so sweet and open-hearted, and also so knowledgeable and fun and juicy. And I love connecting with her. And so if you like the vibe of the conversation, please check her out. Please check out her podcast, The Queen of Alchemy. And then on the flip side, again, if you are enjoying the conversation, enjoying the things that we're sharing about, I invite you to join the free 5-day challenge, Revitalized Mom, Nourishing Through Pleasure. It's been so much fun. There is just so much in store. We are doing different meditations and breath work and practices every single day with a whole lot of knowledge as well. There are so many different things I am sharing about that you get to learn about, that we get to chat about in the chat and in the community, different ahas that are coming up. So I highly encourage you to check that out as well. And so now we can get into today's episode.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have Janine here as a special guest on the podcast today. I love her. She is amazing and such a beautiful energy. And I'm just really excited she agreed to be here to share her gifts with us. And before I bring her on to share more about herself, I just wanted to share with you her bio and just share a little bit more about her and what I feel from her. And then I'll just have her pop on and start sharing. So this is Janine McKinnon. She is a sex, love, and relationship coach, and she supports moms in thriving as their most radiant and happy selves. So through using tools like breath work, inner child healing, pleasure practices, and other approachable rituals, she creates a pathway for holistic, long-lasting transformation and building confidence, connecting to your authenticity, awakening to pleasure, trusting your intuition, and letting go of your controlling masculine energy to soften more fully in your feminine energy. So Janine has 7+ years as experience as a community leader, hosting events and supporting like-minded moms in their journey through motherhood. She has completed 650+ hours with world-renowned sex, love, and relationship coaching certification to support her in her mission to empower women to return to the wisdom of their bodies and the earth, and to unapologetically embrace the power that lies within. And this is also true from what I have felt from her. We actually met through a sex, love, and relationship coaching certification. And I've had the pleasure of doing a practicum with her, maybe a couple, and she just holds the most beautiful space. And I felt very, very honored to be in that with her. And she helped me through some things I was going through at the time that I'm really grateful for. And yeah, then I also had the pleasure of speaking on her podcast, and that was really fun, which I will be sharing the links to how to connect with her at the end. I'm also going to have her share as well. She has a really fun challenge coming up as well, and we'll talk about that more here in a little while. But I just want to bring Janine in and have her share more about herself with you and however she wants to express that today.
Thank you so much for having me, for that warm welcome. And I'm so excited to be here today and to chat with you. I've loved growing our connection over the last year through our program, doing those practicums together, chatting on the podcast, and it's been so fun. And I think we're very aligned in a lot of ways with what we put out into the world, and how we want to see moms and women really thriving as themselves, their true authenticity, and being able to embrace their sexual power, let go of any shame, all of that societal conditioning bullshit, and just be able to truly embrace who they are. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm glad that you're here and love hearing that share. And absolutely, we have it so much like we have this unique way that we each do things, of course, but it's like so connected in how those come together and how they relate. And like you said, like the overall mission of just helping women and helping them to see these different parts of themselves and to really thrive in that. Um, yeah, so to start after that, I would love to hear and have you share what your story is, where you came from, why you started on this path of wanting to help women.
Sure, I would love to. So I'd say probably around like 8 or maybe even 10 years ago at this point, through college, I had a digital marketing program. And so I needed a project to take me through the year. And I've always been kind of that like go-to for friends to like, how do I deal with this? How should I wear this? Like all of the different things. And so I started out with being a content creator and did that for quite a few years. It built up a good sized following, carried that through motherhood. And within that, I was able to really connect with other women and see what was going on. My space really became this place where people could be their authentic selves, speak about the true, real issues that were going on, with overwhelm and exhaustion and different things around sex and having their partners having like a lot of different pressure on them or feeling really disconnected from that. And so I've always really maintain this thread of really wanting to help other women. It came to a point, however, through content creating that it wasn't doing it for me anywhere anymore. It wasn't really working or clicking how I wanted it to be. I really wanted to provide more rather than kind of that community space, and then also of that sales and advertising side to it. Like that part wasn't me, along with the time spent on social media. And at the time of coming to all of these realizations, I stumbled upon Layla Martin's advertising for our Vita coaching certification. And if you had asked me even 6 months before that if I would become a sex love and relationship coach, I would have had no idea what you were talking about. But lo and behold, after probably a month of thinking on it and originally saying, like, I'm not ready for that, I signed on up, have gone through the program. It's now almost a year and a half later, I think, from that initial seeing her ad. And I am just so grateful for the experience, for my own personal transformation, the way I'm able to love myself, accept myself, the way I'm able to connect with my family, with my husband, be present for my kids, and also for the tools I've been able to gain throughout that. There's much, much more, as well as the connection and things like that, but simplifying it. And now I truly feel like I have this incredible tool belt to be able to help women with. And the impact I've seen in the different one-on-one sessions I've had is just, it's so incredible. This work, I am just so honored to be a woman who is able to put this out in the world and help women come home to who they are, because we are just so layered down with expectations and societal conditioning from honestly, before we're even born, people will say things about like, oh, this baby girl will be able to like help out in this way or whatever it might be, already like putting that role on us. And so being able to help women break out of that conditioning, of those expectations, to be able to come back to the wisdom of their bodies that's within, because we all have this incredible compass within ourselves.
Mm,
And when we can learn to really connect with that, to embrace that, what comes from it is just so beautiful and so powerful, and that's what's going to change the world. And through doing this kind of individual work, one-on-one, the way we're able to then show up in our families, the
mm,
way we're able to interact with those around us, with our friends, our family, and so on. I just see this beautiful ripple effect that goes out into the world, for doing this. And so I'm so grateful to be able to carry out this goddess consciousness into the world.
mm. Yes. Yes to all of this. I just feel it. I was just so entranced by what you're saying because I'm like, oh, me too.
Yeah.
Like just so much. Like, yeah, how amazing and like fortunate we are to be able to be in this space where we do get to step into this role for with other women and for ourselves and like seeing the transitions for us like after this year of this program that we've done and how much in our personal lives have been able to change from that. And I can resonate absolutely with like my relationship with my sexuality has deepened even more. My relationship with how I show up for different things and different people. And I think I shared this with you before. I can't remember if I have or not, but yeah, I feel the same like even with my kids and with my husband, like there's definitely such a shift. Like I feel like that I was already being very conscious and aware of how I showed up as a mom, how I showed up as a partner. Um, but there's something about this work we've been doing, and it like might not seem like it on the surface sometimes, but there is like energetically something so different about how things happen and how they are progressing just from doing these practices and these experiences that we've had, which is just incredible. So I love that you share that because I'm like, yes, I so feel that. And I'm excited for the women that get to experience this too, whether, you know, they're new coming into the program or like people that we get to contact and like our women that we work with and how they get to experience that. And it's just such a powerful thing to be able to support other women in that way. So thank you for showing up in this space and like being here and taking that step into doing this program because I literally feel like you were made for it. I'll just say that. Um, yeah, and then I know we were talking about, you know, topics that we wanted to cover here today together, and you had mentioned, you know, pleasure practices, including just sexual energy as life force energy, using self pleasure as nourishment, self care in motherhood, and different pleasure practices, sex magic, etc. So, I would love to know where do you want to start? Like, what do you want to start talking about and bringing into this space right now?
Yes, so much to dig into. And I think how you touched on it really weaves in really well with you already being like a fairly conscious mother and conscious partner before going into this program and doing this work. But through all of the different practices and meditations and everything we've done, there's a shift there. And it's hard to make it really tangible, but it's this really profound shift in how we're able to show up. And I think a big part of that is pleasure practices in itself. And so I think many women come into their journey for different reasons, yet similar reasons. And often it can start with, like, say, meditations and journaling, bringing in some like breath work, community. But pleasure is often like kind of a left out piece because it
Mm,
also tends to be left out in lots of our society unless it's around sex sales. But
yeah.
besides that, it's something to be avoided and not talked about. And pleasure practices are just so profound.
Mm,
As you mentioned, sex or sexual energy is our life force
yeah.
energy. And so, as I know you know, it is.
Mhm,
But for those listening, our sexual energy is literally how we create life. It's how we create children, more humans. It is a very potent energy. And similarly, that sexual energy holds our creative energy in other ways, not just the creation of life, but our creativity in terms of different creative projects, the way we dress ourselves, even the way we dance, the music we listen to, the way we make our homes feel like spaces of beauty. And
mm,
so, one of my favorite kind of side effects of this work in really doing these pleasure practices, getting in touch with our life force energy, is that our creative energy just unlocks and begins to flow. I was a very creative little girl. But I kind of fell out of that in my late teens and early 20s. It just kind of got squashed and I felt disconnected from it. It might come out in little ways, but not to that same like potency.
mm,
And over this year and a bit doing this program, it has unlocked and it's been amazing. And I love just having all these different creative projects, creating beauty with my home, like my little office space
mm.
here. And it's been a way of being able to bond with my daughter as well and being
Mm,
able to share that and do these different creative things together. And so, although it's something that can be quite overlooked, there's so much that can come out of it. Like the creativity is just one piece. Another side of it is how I believe I touched on it, like sexuality is something we shy away from in our society. Like, yes, sex sells and it is so out there, which shows that it is an innate part of us. It's a huge part of us that we are drawn to or avoid in one way or another.
mm.
But at the same time, it's pushed to the side. We don't really talk about that. It can be very performative. I know a lot of messages I received as a woman is like, it's not about us at all. Like, it's about pleasing your husband,
Mm,
or whatever your partnered situation is. It's generally for them. And so, through really getting in touch with your sexuality and pleasure practices are a big piece of that. It's really taking ownership for yourself and embracing the shadow of it. Because when we do those things like journaling, meditation, breath work, like I love all of those things. But it's still like the shadow piece for this innate part of us. And how can you truly be whole? How can you truly have full self love and self acceptance when you avoid this innate part of you? So, when
mm,
you're able to weave pleasure practices into the puzzle, into all of these different methodologies we're doing, for me, I believe that's how we truly become whole. How we're
mm.
truly able to align our energy, be able to uncover those shadows, accept them, and through that, we're able to show up more fully as us.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I know like when you talk, I'm just like most of the time I'm like, yep, yes. Because
Yeah.
it's yeah, like you said at the beginning, like so like we just there's so much cross connections. So I'm trying to say cross connections within what you and I do like believe and so I really love having conversations with you because it just feels like so so fluid. um but yeah, I as soon as you brought in the shadow piece, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because that has been huge for me this year too, where I'm just like, ooh, shadow. You know, like it's something that I know, like there's different experiences I've gone to, events I've gone to where they kind of bring in different pieces, but I don't feel like it was ever really integrated or done very well. It felt very just thrown together or something that someone hadn't really practiced a lot. Which fine, like at least they're putting it out there, but I feel like being so careful with how you present things and how like the people you're helping because you can put them into a space that's not good for them, right? And so my experiences before this program were like, they were okay, but I brought more fear than anything because I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at these parts of me. Not that. Not that. Like I can acknowledge when I'm being a brat or a bitch, but I don't want to look at that dark side, that deeper dark side. And so it's like even the parts that seem like they wouldn't relate to your sexuality. I feel like through the shadow processes and practices that we've done, even from what we've learned over this past year, it's like there's so much deeper that related that I didn't know related. It was like this anger. I think one of them, it was kind of towards the beginning. So I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was like I had this anger, but it was toward like an experience rather than a person. But for some reason, like when I worked on that with the shadow practices, something unlocked in me sexually. Like, I was like, what just happened? So it's like these things that they come up and the shadow is, yeah, it can feel scary and it can feel nerve-wracking, but oh my gosh, the things you can unlock when you actually look at it and you actually are brave enough to face it, and even having the support to do that. If you don't really want to do it on your own, of course, like have a coach, have someone that can help you through that. But like there are different things that can unlock and that relate to each other that you would have never put together. You would have never thought was the case. And then all of a sudden you notice there are shifts happening. And I feel like this has been such a huge missing piece that people haven't worked on, especially in the coaching world and different things. It's like actual integrated shadow work and how that looks and how that feels and what that experience would be like. Because I think you kind of, said this basically, but like when we're not able to face the shadow pieces, we're still repressing parts of ourselves. We're not letting that out. And so then, of course, other areas of our life, like you said, like creative sides that have been coming out for you and like this bonding with your daughter, which is so beautiful. It's like that all these things are coming out from doing this different work, which is amazing. And you don't usually notice that until after you've done it and you see, oh, all of this did tie together. Like, where has this been all my life? And so I love it. And I love the conversation around all of it. But man, shadow has been my kink lately. But yes, I'd love to hear like what would be your favorite? This might be a hard question. I don't know. For me, these are hard sometimes, but what would you say is your favorite self-pleasure practice? Like what have you done that you're just like, yes.
Okay. Well, first, I just love how much you light up talking about the shadow. Like when I first mentioned it, I just saw your eyes and this excitement, and I love it because I love the shadow work too, and it has been so impactful for me as well. I really got a big hunk kind of uncovered, and for me through belonging and like safety
Mm,
within groups, going
mm,
through that. But I'll answer your question in terms of the favorite self-pleasure practice.
yeah.
And so I have always been very interested in manifesting.
Mm,
I'd say that kind of brought me into the self-development world, like learning about law of attraction and things like that. I love manifesting. And so for me, one of my favorite sex magic or my favorite self-pleasure practices is sex magic. I can like see you're like, you know what's coming. Um, but it's just it brings in this extra juicy potency to it that like you can't get anywhere else. And so like yes, you can write out your script and your goals and do the affirmations and do the visualizations, but when you pair that visualization, that full embodiment of feeling like you have your goal, you are living that, you are acting as that, and then bringing in that sexual life force energy into it is just so powerful. Like I
Mm,
touched on, like this is how we create life. It is such powerful energy, and being able to move that through your body, move it through your chakras, sending it out into the world, and then like feeling it come back down into you. I've every time I do it, I experience such shifts. Even
mm,
when last night I actually, because I'm finishing up some things, I did one without actual very sexual touching, which I've always done up until that point. I was more so
mm,
focused on the energy. And still, I felt such big shifts from it.
mm,
And so being able to like feel that come back down, I just find like it's really kind of jumping timelines, like that quantum leaping. You're just able to bring in so much more of an embodiment of that future vision, whatever it is you're calling in. And it is something I go into in my free challenge that's coming up. And I have an upgrade for like a recording, my favorite version of doing it. And just a couple weeks ago, like, it's my favorite practice, I do this regularly. And just a couple weeks ago, I manifested something like 4 hours, I think it was. I had this,
It's
like,
amazing.
I was shocked, like, when I woke up and saw the notification, it's like, "What? Like, actually? Like, I know this works, but it works that good?" And I was like visualizing this is business related. And so getting these certain kind of notifications coming in for different like sales and things like that. And literally while I slept, something that I have not been promoting whatsoever, that has just like been going on in the background, haven't talked about it in months. Someone stumbled upon out of nowhere and purchased my cycle syncing guide that I have. And I was like, "Wow, like, holy shit, this
Oh
stuff works." 4
my
hours later, like, I literally didn't have to do anything, like, I had taken all that aligned action leading up to that, and that aligned action is a very important part of sex magic,
gosh.
but it was so cool to see that come to life so quickly.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Uh yeah, I love that. And like obviously I love how you're like, I mean this but I do this all the time. It's like I am well versed in this practice.
Yes,
Right, which is amazing because why not? It's
totally.
like if it's something that works and it feels yummy, like come on.
Sign me up.
Let's do this. I love that. It's a beautiful and yeah, I feel like definitely sex magic practices like I will be like in the midst of I just scratched my microphone. Like hopefully that's not a big cat sound. Um I will have multiple orgasms because the energy is so strong. Like when it's coming back into my body, I'm like, oh, okay. And it just feels so yummy. So, anyone interested in these kind of practices, like Janine said, you said you would be covering some of it in your challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm covering some of it in my challenge, and I think you might have
Yeah.
something up your sleeve coming up around it too.
Well, yes, later,
Later.
but
Okay.
but like if you want to join a challenge and like dive into this, I'm going to share the link to Janine's challenge if this is something that you're like, whoa, like I want to try this out. Like, okay. And yeah, I want to share an experience I had doing this when I went to for the program we were in, there was a in-person retreat and we got to do these different things and practice sex magic and more personal kind of story. Like I was doing other things leading up to this where I found out I had skin cancer on my nose. And I was having a really, really hard time emotionally with that because I had already just had one replaced or removed on my scalp and on my arm. And it like brought up a lot of stuff for me. And I was going through like really heavy emotions. And I was doing other things to help with it, like putting I think it's turmeric oil that I would put on it every day. really practicing with that, and just like begging, like, please let this go away when I go back to test it, like, please let it go away. And this is in no way medical advice or saying that everybody can do this and it's just going to work. But I will say for myself, I did a sex magic practice at this retreat while we were on the beach, and it was more of an energetic practice. And I was so focused on, this is going to be healed. By the time I get home and get this checked, it's going to be gone. And that was my whole focus. And I could see it and I could feel it and I envisioned it. And I had done this with like my arm and my head too. Like I didn't do sex magic with it, but I like was doing everything I could to try to make it shift, right? Putting the turmeric oil on it, everything. And then I got home. And by the way, I love my dermatologist because he's so amazing. And he was like, okay, I know you don't want to get it removed. I know you want to check it again, but like, you let me know for sure what you want to do. I can leave the room so you can meditate on it for a bit if you want. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love you. So I felt so honored. So first off, find someone who honors you if you're going to go anything medical. And he checked it again. I decided I wanted to do it and it was gone. There was nothing. Everything was gone. And so I'm just like, okay. So that was an experience for me that was like, it wasn't financial, which I've been like working on that now with sex magic, which has been amazing. But it was very much something that meant so much to me physically. Like, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to trust that it can, and it did. I'm sure like other things I did leading up to it, they all contributed together, but energy is so powerful and these things are so powerful. And again, this is not saying like, oh, if you have something going on physically or ailment, do this and it's going to fix you. But like, that was something I experienced. And I know that it was from that, like a major, huge part of that. So I highly recommend giving it a try. So again, with Janine's challenge, she's going to be talking about these things and I'm sure so much more. And so I really encourage you, even if you're just a little bit curious, if you're like on the fence and maybe just like, oh, I don't know that bad or wrong with me. Like, but if there's that curiosity there, do it because you have nothing to lose. It's a free challenge. Like there's nothing to lose. That's right. Free challenge, 5-day challenge.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, crap. I should probably double check
good.
that real quick. So nothing to lose and so much to gain. So we'll talk about that more too. But yeah. So anyway, I kind of got on a tangent there, but just like
so incredible.
Yeah. Just the things that can happen and just having the faith in that and trusting yourself. Like, trusting you. Like someone else could probably hear me say that and be like, it wasn't that, it probably just went away. Like, no, it was very much there and it went away. But in my heart, I know, so trusting, being able to trust yourself. And I might want to ask you a little bit about that too, but just trusting yourself in knowing like what works for you and what's good for you and something that happened for you that's a miracle. Don't let other people water it down or downplay it. Like really take the time to be like, no, this is what it was for me. And that's okay for me to know that. And oh, well, if nobody else does, oh, well, if nobody else thinks that, I'm not going to let my excitement water down. And I would love to ask you this next for moms. Okay. In this realm of self-pleasure and sex magic and being in this place in motherhood, what would you say to moms who maybe hear a lot in their circles in their lives, like, oh, those things don't actually work. Like, that's not gonna be good for you. Like they feel so excited, but then someone comes in when they share it and someone comes in, they're like waters it down. What would you say to these women, these moms that might have that a lot in their lives?
That is a great question. And I think what just jumps out to me at that is like, that's so much of why do this work is for women to come home to the wisdom within, the wisdom that we have, the wisdom within our bodies. And all of us know the right answers for us deep within. And so if you have that initial excitement, that nudge, that pull for something, explore it. Like, why not? Not everything is for everyone. Other people can have their judgments, have their things that they want to say, and that often shows more about them than about you and what you're interested in. And so, in keeping that in mind, people are coming to these realizations or judgments based on their own experiences and programming. And although there can be some value in like having a sounding board, we also need to have our own discernment with that. And yes, we can listen to these things, but ultimately it's knowing what's true with it. And if you're someone who has trouble connecting with that or even knowing what that is, my invitation is that that's even more of a nudge into doing this kind of work, because it's how you come home to your body. It's how you come home to yourself. And in reality, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to try something you're interested in, and it either goes great, you learn all these things, you have these shifts, you like manifest all this stuff, whatever it might be, or does it really work out? And you're in the same place you were before you tried, but now you have the knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a win-win situation. Like, you're not really losing that much. So I just encourage you, if you're someone in that position, to just tune in within.
Mm.
See how it resonates with your heart, with your gut, with your body. And sure, there might be some nervousness, some questioning, because all things that are new and strange are going to have part of that. But I just encourage you to follow your gut, follow that nudge, and explore things and see where it takes you. Like, there's not going to be some big, terrible thing that happens from exploring it, right? So just give it a go and see where it takes you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's such an important piece because the trust, the trust, the trust, the trust. And I just want to say Janine is definitely a very good example of that from what I've seen and experienced with her. Um, I love that. So take that in and like really just swish that around in your body. Like, what can you do? How can you trust? And how can you tap into that more? And um, yeah, just your own wisdom, your own knowledge. Like when you were a kid, right? You didn't just take everything and like for face value. You asked a lot of questions. You were curious. I mean, once you hit a certain age, obviously that starts dwindling with different expectations and things. But before that point, like be like a curious little child who's asking a million questions, even though you're like, why are you asking so many questions? Like be that, do that for yourself. Like get that curiosity. See the example of children. I
Yes.
would, what was that? Sorry.
It's just like, yes, absolutely. Thinking about
Yeah.
my kids, and like, there's some that are just going to like try the thing anyway. They're going to like gather all of that information and be like, you know what? I want to see for myself and go do it for themselves anyway. And it's just what a beautiful embodiment of like our pure essence. Like, everyone has it in different flavors, but it like doesn't have that conditioning stomping those things down. And it's just doing what is true to them.
Yeah, that's definitely my 4-year-old. Even when he goes to dance class, his teacher's like, okay, you need to come, you need to come over here and do this now. And he's like, no, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm like, you need to listen to your teacher. I'm like, there are certain times, yes, like be that sassy attitude. I'm like, but he's not gonna let you come back to dance class if you don't do this. But he's just so much that thing, like, no, I'm just not gonna do that. Or I'm gonna do this. I'm like, oh my word. It's
Yeah.
like I got a lot cut out for me there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stomp it out. I like want him to have it, just be smart with it. Yeah. So I would also love for you to expand on your, like when you mentioned you want to talk about self-pleasure as nourishment. And I know like a lot of what we've talked about, obviously, that all kind of applies to that. But is there anything that you feel like would be really beneficial for listeners to know about self-pleasure as nourishment and what that means to you and how you apply that with the people that you work with and even with yourself?
Absolutely. So self-pleasure is just this incredible gateway for energy and vitality and life. And in thinking of it, like for me, it's a tool in the tool belt of self-care, right? And we are often inundated with messages of like how to do self-care. There's many different things to do. They generally all have a time and a place, but I find a lot of them can be quite surface level. And you get like that bit of a dopamine hit, that bit of rest and replenishment, but it doesn't last long term. Or there's like the more nitty gritty self care where you're like putting those things in place to like help get more support and things like that,
Mm,
which is helpful. It's a bit more long term, it goes a little bit deeper. But I feel like self pleasure is something that in place of or in addition to maybe that relaxing bath and journaling or say going out with a friend or whatever it might be, switching it up and bringing self pleasure into it. And there's like a specific tip that is helpful that I'll touch on in a moment, but I find it really nourishes you on such a deep level. Like you
mm,
feel the lasting impacts of it much, much longer than many of those other things that we can do. And
mm,
especially when you have like a real practice where you're doing this on an ongoing basis, it really becomes this place of nourishment. And again, you're connecting with your life force energy. You have more liveliness, more energy, just a more gusto in your step, right?
mm,
And so one tip that I love and I pulled right from our program is using that sexual energy to nourish your whole body. So, what our listeners can do, I know you know all about it, is through a self pleasure practice. And I will say, like, this doesn't have to be all a sexual pleasure either. And so you can do this through one of my favorite ones is a face massage. Feels super strange and weird when you like first go to do it to yourself,
mm.
but it feels amazing. And so, like, you can just massage your face, massage your hands, or bring in some more sexual pleasure, however you want to go about it. But when you're in that like height of pleasure, whatever that looks like for that particular experience, using that and thinking about nourishing your body with it, going right down into every cell, your bones, your bloods, just really bringing it into your body, breathing it around. It truly is so nourishing, so replenishing. I do this every time I have a sexual experience, like
Mhm.
pretty much every single time. And it's because it works. Like it feels damn good. And it's a way you're able to take your own energy and nourish yourself, heal yourself, bring back that liveliness. And like moms, we got so much on the go. And if we can just like do this little trick on top of something that we're already doing and maybe use it as motivation to like bring it into the mix a little bit more and get those great benefits from it, like why not?
Mhm. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's something that is like out of everything that I'll just speak for myself. Out of everything that I've ever learned, I feel like, especially relating to self-care, giving that loving energy, that energy from, touching ourselves, whether that be sexually or just lovingly, um, is one of the most transformative experiences ever. So I
Mhm.
1000% agree with you. Like for me personally, it's been the same experience of just like that has shifted so much in my life. Just giving myself that time, giving myself that energy. Because, like you said, as moms, we're like giving, we're giving, we're giving. And it's okay for us to also give that to ourselves, especially in those instances. It's like, I'll speak on like sexual pleasure here. You are 1000% still very worthy of sexual pleasure. That does not change. And so I feel like, yeah, it's just like you said, moving that energy through, really being intentional with that, really focusing on that, and allowing it to penetrate just every part of you is incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful. So I love that you shared that because I feel like every single person in this world would benefit from doing that. Every single one. And it would start to create that ripple into the world, you know? So I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what has been your um what do you feel like has been the biggest change for you since you started doing that?
Hmm. Um, I'm just trying to like think and drop into like that piece specifically. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's the connection I have with my body
Mm,
and then feeling more nourished. So I can relate it to like having your favorite warm drink on like
mm,
a cozy morning and like really relishing in it.
mm,
And that's like a pleasure practice in itself. And it's something I touch on in the challenge. So I can relate it to that where it's just like so, so good, so, so soothing. And so that particular present or practice of using that energy in that way is just kind of like that on steroids in a way, but in a
mm.
like juicy, flowy way. And it just makes you feel good and cozy. And again, I feel like it just really helped connect myself with my body. Like it's a chance to be present with what's going on and like again moving that energy through the body, building that relationship with what's inside, where to move things, what's present, what can I give more love to, where can I like use that energy to give to another space. It's just a
Mm,
really great way to build that relationship with yourself and have that nourishment from it.
mm. Yes. I love that. I love that so much. So again, an amazing part of the challenge that she has to be able to experience that. And as you can, I hope, tell from even just listening to her voice, she's got that very nourishing energy just in herself. So even if you didn't do the practices, you'd still feel her energy, be
Heck yeah.
nourished by that. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, Okay, cool. So is there anything else before we go into sharing how people can come in contact with you, the things you have coming up? I keep scratching my microphone. I'm like, it's like so
It's
I
not
don't know
super
what.
jarring, so like you're okay.
I'm like, I can't hear anything. So hopefully, um, yeah, anything that you would want to share to kind of wrap up before we go into that piece of sharing how to connect with you.
Yeah, I think I just really want to solidify that this is such an innate part of us. And so it's something we could allow to lay dormant, ignore it, push it to the side, pretend it's not there. Or it's something we can embrace. Like it's there with or without whatever we decide to do with it. So why not learn to work with it? Learn to build a relationship. Use it for your good. Like it's there either way. And so if you are curious about anything we're talking about, if you are interested, excited, if you're feeling any sort of pull to our conversation today, I just really encourage you to explore this more. Because as we both said, like this has changed our life in different ways, so many different ways, through going through these different processes in different ways, building this relationship with ourselves, with our sexual energy, and although it's sexual in nature and there are other components to it, that ripple effect is huge. Through going through this process, not only are you going to learn to accept yourself and love yourself, build a connection with your body, learn to feel at home within yourself, that allows you to show up in the way you truly want to, the way you feel like you can, but you're not quite there. This is a support in helping you get to that point. It helps your relationship with your kids, with your partner, with those you interact with. The ripple effect truly is so huge in how it spills over into the different aspects of your life. So, again, if you're interested, curious, have a poll in either way. Both Amber and I would love to chat. We got lots of resources for you. I have my challenge coming up, and there's lots on Google as well if you want to explore on your own. But if you feel that nudge, I definitely encourage you to follow it and see where it takes you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, speaking of our challenge, which obviously we brought up a few times on this episode, because it's going to be amazing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, is there anything else you want to share about the challenge? And then which I'll share Janine's social handle, her Instagram handle, and some different her website and some different things that you can look at as well. But I'll just let her share that here too, just out loud. So just your your Instagram social account, a little bit more about your challenge, and then any other way that they can connect with you and what your offerings are.
Sure, that sounds good. So my challenge is Revitalized Mom, Nourishing Through Pleasure. So it's a completely free 5-day challenge where it really lays the foundation for you to get started with all of these different things we're talking about. So we begin with creating your own sexual story, do a little bit of inner child healing work with that. Then we build more into the connection with your body, doing some yoni breathing, really learning to work with that energy, have the connection with ourselves. Then we get into more of the nitty gritty with your pleasure toolkit, and I bring erotic blueprints into it, giving some different ways that are more supportive because I think a lot of us have this idea of like more of a sexual blueprint in terms of pleasure. And many of us are on different ranges of the spectrum. And perhaps that's why self pleasure may or may not work for some of our listeners, or they may not have this certain connection with it. And that's because, or a chance for that is that there's these different pathways of getting there. So I cover that and how you can access it in a way that is right for you and different tools to help you with that. And then we get into the pleasure practices. So we have a day for non-sexual pleasure practices, and then a day for those more sexual pleasure practices. The whole challenge is free. If you want to upgrade, there's an early bird upgrade to actually get 5 different recordings. So that includes that sex magic recording, 5 senses recording, the yoni breathing, different things like that. And so that runs live January 15th to 19th, I believe. So it runs live. You can be there for questions or catch the replay. And then afterwards, it will go into Evergreen. So anyone at any time, if you're stumbling up across this podcast in a few months, whatever it might be, it is available for you. Just follow the link, sign up. You'll be able to access it all and go self-paced through it. So that's all the nitty gritty about the challenge. Amber mentioned she's got the link. If you would like to connect with me personally, my Instagram is at Janine.McKinnon. There's a whole lot of N's in there, so just follow the link that's included. I won't bother spelling it all out there. So you can connect with me there. I have been stepping away from social media a little bit and just focusing on the podcast, focusing on my private community. So I have a free private community that will be linked as well. And so that is kind of where I share a lot of those things that will be in stories often. It's a place we can connect as a community. The free challenges and events are there. I will be doing a weekly live for Me Time Monday, kind of touching on this topic and others for really nourishing challenging ourselves on a weekly basis. So I think that is all the main ways. I'm on Facebook too. You can search me up, but that's the main way to get a hold of me if you'd like to connect.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Doesn't her challenge sound amazing? Get on it. And so that you can be in the live. Because again, of course, like the evergreen is going to be amazing too. And like she said, be self-paced. Yeah, if you want to get in there live, as she said, it's January 15th to the 19th. And I will say that when I do things live, it feels like more accountability, and it feels, you can feel this like energy with it and working with everyone through it. So I highly recommend doing things live and then do the evergreen later, you can have it later too. Beautiful. So this has been exciting because Janine, as she said before we we got on to record, I was telling her this is my first time interviewing someone on my podcast, and she delightfully was very pleased to pop my podcast interview cherry. And I was laughing so much when she said that, because I'm like, that's exactly how it feels. So thanks, Janine, for popping that cherry to go along with our pleasure conversation today. Yeah, I'm so grateful. It's been amazing to have you on here, sharing your energy, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your beautiful outlook on life, and how you are so excited to help change and create ripple effects. So it's been an honor to have you on here. And again, I'll share all of her links on the description. And yeah, you can follow her and look at the other things that she has going on, like the challenge and other things, and just enjoy the exploration. So yeah, thank you so much, Janine. Again, thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, I'll let Janine say goodbye to you as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been an honor to pop your podcast interview, Cherry. You are a complete natural. I doubt anyone listening could even tell it was your first time. You're so good at this. So thank you for having me. And thank you to those listening for being a part of this conversation, being a part of this movement, through listening, through having conversations with your friends. You really are a part of this movement. And like I said at the beginning, that's how I think we really create change in this world and create that ripple effect. So thank you so much. It's been an honor. And yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I love you so much, and it's definitely been an honor.
I love you too.
I love you. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us inside the Unapologetic Moms Club podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you shared about this episode in your stories or left us a review to help us reach more women on their unapologetic mama journey. As a thank you for your support, you'll be entered into our monthly draw for a free laser coaching session. Just tag @Janine.McKinnon in your story shares, or leave the rating or review, screenshot it, and email to Janine@unapologeticmotherhood.com to be entered. One lucky winner is selected every month for a focus coaching session to support you in working towards your current desires. Until next time, trust your inner wisdom and create some magic.